and welcome to Macabre and Company. I'm Erica.
And I'm Rohan. I'm not George.
Surprise! You're not George.
No. George is gone
George.
for this episode.
That was very dramatic. Yes, George is on holiday, having a wonderful time in a tropical place. I've been really jealous watching the Instagram stories.
Where's he gone?
I don't know if we should tell everyone in case the throngs in case our tens of viewers try to find him.
Let's not ruin his holiday by having him be mobbed by fans.
Mobbed by the paparazzi. We couldn't have that. But trust and believe it is a beautiful place. So, in George's place, as an extra special treat, we've brought Rohan in to talk about one of our favorite topics, which is...
Well, let's just set this up a little bit. So okay. You are Canadian.
Yes, I am.
You may already know this.
Yes.
And the listeners may already know this. And you live in Australia. So part of the joy of that is you're discovering Australian culture and words and things. And so as an outsider coming to Australia, what do you think are the things Australia is most famous for?
I mean, convicts. Convicts number one, I think, and kangaroos.
Convicts and kangaroos. All the K words.
All the K words, yes.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So convicts is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And this episode comes about from when you were driving to Beechworth to manage a drag festival.
I was managing a beautiful drag festival in Beechworth, and I was driving through the countryside of the state of Victoria, and I kept seeing this little guy with a funny hat on everybody's lawn.
Little guy with a funny hat.
It's this little guy with a funny hat, and there he's like in mailboxes and on pictures and all over the place. And so I called Rohan from the car and was like, who is this little guy with a funny hat on? Convict is the answer.
Well, we're going to talk about him in a bit, but I thought for this episode we could talk a bit, because Australia has that reputation of being full of criminals, which may be true. But we're going to talk about why Australia has the reputation of being full of criminals.
How exciting. Okay.
And there will be lots of mentions of violence and death. We'll get into a couple of individual stories, but give a little bit of an overall history of criminal Australia as well. I just want to acknowledge also that colonial Australia has a lot of history that's really awful, particularly with the Indigenous population. We're not really going to get into that today. Okay. Just the topic is really about the convicts.
Yeah, perfect.
Convicts and what came from that. So, why convicts? Why were there convicts brought to Australia? In the mid-1700s, there was a British agricultural revolution. The agriculture became much more efficient. Lots of people had to move to the city because there wasn't as much work in the rural areas, and there were new methods, new crops, less work available. So there was a lot of poverty, a lot of extra people in the city.
FYI, if you're Australian and you were talking about poverty, you would call it pavo.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, feel free to throw in any Aussie phrases you've learned throughout this episode.
Because heaven forbid you say an entire word. Funny story, I have one of my colleagues at work is French. And I was talking to her yesterday, and we were talking about the differences between Australia and other places. She was like, I spent all of this time learning your words. Could you please just say all of them? And I thought it was really funny because Australians notoriously shorten everything to a teeny tiny thing. So she learned English, and nobody speaks it here. It's half of a word.
Take a U-turn to go to McDonald's just past the service station.
Yeah.
We're going to chuck a U to go to Macca's past the servo. In the morning or in the arvo?
Scan.
Well,
anyway,
our story starts. We're thinking Charles Dickens times. We're thinking Pavo London. Pavo London.
Pavo London.
Lots of very harsh punishment for crime, because there was lots of petty theft, lots of people trying to survive, and so they started using all these leftover ships that weren't still good enough to go to sea, but we could just sit in the harbour, and they would use them as prisons, put people on them.
Sit in the where?
In the harbour.
In the harbour?
The harbour. My accent.
The harbour.
The harbour. This is our life.
This is what we do.
Did you tell them that I'm your husband?
I don't think I did. This is my husband, everybody.
Yes, this is our life together. Is me saying pepper.
And me saying pepper.
Yes.
And then laughing.
And so on the prison hulks, you'd go in and about a third of prisoners would die. Wet conditions, they'd get typhoid, they'd get cholera, the food was moldy, it was violent, there was abuse, sometimes hard labor. They'd be used for timber cutting, stone cutting, making bricks, things like that, really hard work. So it was a really rough time to be a prisoner in England at that time. There was overcrowding as well. So they started sending prisoners overseas. Now, they'd send them to America, but then America said, no thanks, we're going to be our own country.
Yeah.
That's the actual words, I think.
Yeah.
No thanks.
No thanks.
Probably, no thank you.
No thank you. See you later.
We've had enough. This is our harbour. So they couldn't send prisoners there anymore. So they, having just a few years earlier, had Captain Cook navigate and chart the east coast of Australia. They thought, why don't we go there? Wow.
Let's go.
A perfect solution. We will set up Australia as a penal colony. So there had been Europeans earlier. There'd been Aboriginal Australians for tens and tens of thousands of years, about 60 or 70,000 years, I think, before that. But Europeans came in the 1600s, it's the Dutch, and then the British in 1700s. But the first European settlement, 1788, the first fleet.
1788.
1788, the
what
first
else
fleet.
was happening in 1788?
I don't know, because this is all I learned about in school in Australia. In 1788, one thing happened,
and
it was the beginning of White Australia.
Great, that's all we need to know for today.
But what I didn't know until recently was I was sort of looking up the criminal past for this. I thought that the first fleet came and they made a settlement. What I didn't realise was that, yes, the first fleet came, it was 11 ships, and they brought a colonisation party of military and civilians and 700 convicts. The first fleet.
700
So literally the first Europeans to come and settle in Australia brought nearly 1,000 convicts with them.
On 11 boats.
On 11 boats.
Those weren't big boats.
No, they were small boats back then.
That would have been not fun.
A lot of people died on the way.
How many did they start with? Did you find
I don't have those numbers for you, I'm sorry.
But if a third, what did you say, a third died?
Well, on the hulks in the harbour.
In a harbour.
Okay. A third of prisoners would
So they could have started with
so
1,500 convicts.
They might have. I'm not sure how many started with.
I'm going to tell people we did.
All right, let's go with that. So they established the first permanent European colony in the area now known as Sydney, and they used the convicts as labour as well. So they were prisoners, but they were also labour to help get established. And they, from the next sort of 80 years or so, 162,000 convicts were sent from Great Britain from Great Britain and Ireland and transported to Australia. 24,000 women were among them, and 3,500 political prisoners, people that didn't like the king.
Wow. Oh yeah, if you didn't like the king, they just sent you away.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I were in England in 1788, I would rather come here. Like, the conditions were atrocious.
Yes, the cost of coming here.
And Sydney's warm. Like, how nice. I would be on that convict boat.
Weather.
Yeah,
You'd be on the convict
I'd
boat.
be on the convict boat for sure.
Well, there are penal colonies in New South Wales, where Sydney is, and Western Australia as well, and in Van Diemen's Land, which we now call Tasmania. It's called Van Diemen's Land. In that tradition of naming places after people you want to suck up to.
Right. Giving people the accolades.
Yeah. Mostly convicts were transported for petty crimes. 80% of convicts were thieves.
Okay.
And
Jean Valjean, stealing a loaf of bread.
It's so very Jean Valjean, because a lot of them were stealing to survive.
Right.
In fact, I'd say most of them were stealing to survive. And because we do have records of what people were convicted of, what they were transported for. And when you look through those, when you look through the records, it'll be like, stole a hat, stole a coat.
Yeah.
These are not, knocked over a bank.
No. And I'm reading the book The Five, talking about the five victims of Jack the Ripper, and it really goes into detail about the conditions that's 1880, but same era. And women, you could be cast out of society for just like not having a husband, like walking around late at night, or like your petticoats were too short. So I'm sure lots of those women were just living their lives, and somebody took offense to them living their lives.
Well, mostly it was theft. If you did a more serious crime, you would just get hung.
Right.
There's a lot of death penalty, and actually transportation was generally considered an alternative to the death penalty. So a lot of the people that we're talking about, they got sentenced to death, and then they went, we'll transport you instead.
Let's get on this boat.
Again, actual words I'm quoting there. Transportation. So death penalty crimes included stealing anything over 5 shillings in value, cutting down a tree, stealing an animal.
Any tree?
I think it's like maybe you cut down a fruit tree to get all the fruit.
Right, or like some governor's tree.
Yeah. I think maybe you cut down a tree for firewood.
Surely
or
not a Christmas tree.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was on a list of things.
A whole boat full of people at Christmas that were just trying to get a tree for the fam.
Also, now, I think if you're under 18, you wouldn't go to adult prison. You'd go to some kind of juvie or perhaps even not go to prison at all. Back then, we had children as young as 12 and 13 being sentenced to death.
Whoa.
And then maybe instead being transported.
Wow.
So children, you think about the children we know who are 12 and 13 years old.
Yeah.
Put in a prison with grown-ups and sent away forever.
Wow.
So transportation was very harsh. You were on a boat for a long time. Many got sick from terrible conditions. Lots of them starved. If you did any extra crimes, or you were part of a fight, or you were insolent, you'd get flogged.
Oh my gosh, I would have been flogged. I am insolent.
Yes.
Yes.
They got used as free or cheap labour as well. If they were well behaved, they'd get some freedoms. So you might be able to walk around town as settlements got established. But if not, you would get additional punishments. So there were some of these penal colonies that were set up as additional punishment colonies. So if you were sent to New South Wales and you then tried to escape, or you were an incorrigible or incurable criminal, you might get sent to Port Arthur. You know about Port Arthur.
Yeah, right? And we've been there. We've been to the old penal colony.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can go and wander around the ruins and take little tours of what used to be the penal colony. Yeah,
so Port Arthur was notoriously harsh, and the reason that they liked to send people there was because there was basically no escape. If you escaped from the penal colony, you were in the wilderness where you would die.
Yeah. And the water's cold in Port Arthur. Like, you can't swim anywhere, nothing's nearby. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was very harsh, but a lot of prisoners, they were treated so badly there that they preferred death to convict life and hard labour. And since a lot of people in the 1800s were God-fearing people and believed suicide's not an option there were sometimes cases of murder pacts where one prisoner would agree to kill another one, and in turn they would then be hung for that crime. So they both escape in a way. They escape the prison without committing that the sin.
That's sin. Interesting.
But still get out of that hell of being a prisoner in Van Diemen's Land. They would do hard labour. They would be working every day, cutting down trees, milling them for timber, and to be used to build the settlements and the colonies. Anyone who escaped, drowned, starved, or in some cases, and we're going to get to this, might turn cannibal. Yes. So transportation did end in about the mid-1800s, not because it was inhumane or cruel or unusual, but because... here's a quote. The hated stain of the convict transportation on the colonist middle classes. So it was giving them a bad reputation.
Oh, wow.
The Australian colonies is where all the convicts go.
Yeah.
And they didn't like that reputation. So it was the middle classes of the colonists who were pushing back, saying, stop sending us criminals. Everyone thinks that that's all of us.
Yeah.
Which still persists, I think.
Yeah, I think that's still considering... I said that's the most well-known thing.
If you want to read more about what convict life could be like, there's a couple of... There's lots of stories about actual convicts, but there's a couple of really great novels about convicts. Marcus Clarke had one called For the Term of His Natural Life, about a man unjustly sent to the colonies, sent to Australia, and lots of bad things happen.
Right.
And Bryce Courtney, Potato Factory, is about a woman who starts out in London and gets transported.
Maybe
to
we book
Australia.
club that.
It's a fantastic. One of my favourite books.
Really?
Yeah, The Potato Factory. I love it.
That's it. We're going to book club it.
So let's talk about a couple of convicts.
Okay.
Let's start with a nice fun one.
Okay.
Okay, so this one's it's a quick story.
I love a fun
Billy Hunt.
Yeah.
Billy Hunt was imprisoned in Port Arthur, and he wanted to escape.
Yeah.
So he got a kangaroo skin and started hopping away under this kangaroo skin.
Stop.
and he might have got away with it, but some of the soldiers nearby saw him, and they were like, "Oh, we're pretty hungry. We could do with a bit of extra meat."
No.
And they started shooting at him, thinking he was a kangaroo, and he went, "No!" Surrendered.
That's
so I got him back, and poor old Billy Hunt. The Billy Hunt became the hunted, and got 150 lashes for trying to escape.
That's really hilariously clever. Where are they just flying around with their kangaroo skins just everywhere? I wonder. Like,
I mean,
he just came across one and was like, yoink.
They don't have farms or supermarkets. I guess that part of living in Van Diemen's Land is you've got to survive. So they would have been
eating,
hunting and
skinning
things from. Yeah, there would have been kangaroo skins around. They were probably using them as blankets. He thought, this will work.
That's wild.
Next one, we're going to mention William Buckley. You might have heard this name.
It does sound familiar.
I'd say most people from where our area, we're near Geelong in Victoria, and William Buckley's pretty well known around here. We've got Buckley's Falls is a waterfall. So this is a waterfall named after a convict, which is very unusual. Not named after a governor or a king or a queen, but after a convict. So I'll explain why. So he was born in 1776, convicted of theft when he was 26. He was a bricklayer, and he'd served in the military, including fighting against Napoleon in the Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
He was a big guy, 6'6", 2 meters tall.
That's very tall.
One of his, I was going to say friends, but I guess an acquaintance, described him as a tall, ungainly man. Imagine your friend writing this about you. A tall, ungainly man, and altogether his looks were not in his favour. He had a bushy head of black hair, a low forehead with overhanging eyebrows nearly concealing his small eyes, a short snub nose, a face very much marked by smallpox, and was just such a man as one would suppose fit to commit burglary or murder.
What a friend. What did his enemies say?
So often what's going to happen in a lot of these stories is there'll be different versions of events. So Buckley's version is that he was asked by a woman to carry some cloth away from his regiment's military base, and he didn't know it was stolen. But it was, and he was convicted of knowingly receiving stolen goods, sentenced to 14 years transportation for stealing some cloth.
So interesting that I would think that the transportation would be a life sentence, but in this theory, would they say we're going to send you there and then bring you back?
For some reason, either 7 or 14. You'd get 7 years for minor crimes, 14 for prison. Well,
do we know
the major crime of stealing some cloth.
Right. Did anyone ever come back?
Very rarely. So it was very difficult to get back, very expensive. Yeah. You'd be paying your own way, and it's a long trip.
Right,
so they'd be 10, 11 months at sea.
Oh my gosh, so they'd be like, okay, you've completed your 7 years. Bye, enjoy.
But now you live here.
Right. Oh, interesting.
So for the most part, you never saw your family or your homeland again.
I just assumed it was a life sentence.
Well, no. William Buckley never saw his family again. He never went home. Transported to Australia, where his bricklayer skills were used to help build a settlement at Port Phillip Bay.
Oh, we know that.
Which was over the other side of the bay from us, which would become Sorrento.
Yeah.
So that's from us. You can take a ferry over, and it lands at Sorrento on the other side of the bay. Which now it's an affluent and beautiful holiday destination. Really? But at the time, it was a difficult site. Not a lot of food around. It was a pretty difficult place for them to live. So they made a decision to abandon the site and move to Tasmania.
Okay.
Now, Buckley didn't want to go because Tasmania,
cold. It's very cold.
That's Van Diemen's Land. That's Port Arthur. He didn't want to go there. So to avoid that, him and 5 others escaped, and one of them was shot and captured. Another surrendered a few weeks later. Of the remaining guys, they struggled to survive while trying to also avoid the indigenous population. And 2 of them headed back. Buckley left on his own.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, he's pretty screwed.
Right.
We have a saying in Australia. Have you heard this one? Buckley's or none?
No, that's a new one.
New one for you? Buckley's or none?
Buckley's or none.
So if you are trying a task that is impossible, you might say, you've got Buckley's or none of succeeding.
Okay.
So Buckley's chance. So he's out in the wilderness alone English man. No chance of survival.
Right.
They wrote him off. They went, well, he's dead.
Yeah.
So Buckley's chance is no survival, no chance at all.
Buckley's or none.
He wanders around. He's hoping to find some other English escapees. He's nearly dead. He's struggling. He's in Struggle Town. And he's walking around the area close to us. So around Armstrong Creek, the Geelong area. That's where he was. And he comes across an Indigenous burial ground with a spear stuck in it. And he takes the spear, using it as a walking stick, because he's exhausted and he's weak. And then he comes across some Indigenous people who see the spear that he's taken, which belongs to their recently deceased tribal chief. So they think he's this returned spirit. He's this big, tall, bearded guy with the spear of their tribal chief. So they take him in, they care for him, they teach him their skills, their customs, their language, and he's going to live with them for 32 years.
Wow!
Becomes very healthy. It's a very healthy lifestyle, very active, plenty of good food around the coast there. In the evening, he learnt the language and the culture. In the evenings, he'd tell them stories, sit around the campfire, tell stories of Napoleon and ships and life in England. He became an expert with their weapons and their tools, and was a very successful and useful member of their tribe. Was given a wife, had a daughter.
Just given a wife.
Given a wife. You know. That's the way it was phrased as I was reading about it. Given a wife.
Yeah, that's property.
Yes. In 1835, a ship arrives in the area. Some of the local Indigenous people planning to kill everyone on board and rob the ship.
Okay.
So Buckley convinces them not to, but because there's now an English camp there, he walks into their. They're sitting. They've got a fire, and this guy walks in, dressed in kangaroo skins, introduces himself.
Wow.
Says he's been there for over 20 years, even though it's been a lot longer.
Yeah.
He'd mostly forgotten how to speak English by then.
Of course you would if you hadn't spoken it at all.
But he spoke the local language fluently. But his English came back pretty quickly. He had a tattoo of his initials, WB, which proved that he was indeed William Buckley.
Yeah.
But he'd been given up for dead 30 years earlier. So he could have been sent back to prison as an escapee, but he wasn't. And part of that was because he'd convinced the local people not to attack the ship and kill everyone. So they were a little grateful.
Wow.
And so he was given a pardon there. So for a while he then went and worked as an interpreter in Melbourne, and then went back to English culture, wearing English clothes. And one point he took a little... his little adventure party went out exploring, and he went with them to interpret. Came across some of his old buddies that he'd lived with for 32 years, and he was greeted with such love and affection. Excuse me. And they were really sad when he left, and really sad that he wasn't going to come back and live with them again. So it's clear, he wasn't just sort of an outsider. He really became part of the group and really was beloved. Yeah. And became part of the family with them. What a story. Held in high regard. So after a while, then he moved to Tasmania, got married to an English widow.
What about his tribal property, the other wife?
I guess he just left her behind.
Just left behind his family. What a hero.
It just seemed like while he was quite beloved, he the moment he got the opportunity to come back to white Australia, he took it. And so he married an English widow whose first husband had been murdered by Aboriginal people while travelling on there from Sydney. Cute fact, she was super short. He was super tall, 6'6". Married this tiny little woman. And when they walked together, she would make a loop out of a handkerchief, put it the loop over his arm, and then she would hang onto the bottom of the loop as they walked together.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so cute.
And he retired in 1850 at 70 years old, and 6 years later got thrown off a horse and died.
Classic.
So, all that against all the odds survived.
Well,
with the help, with a lot of help.
Thrown off a horse, a lot of help.
They just assumed he was gone.
Yeah. Wow.
But he survived.
That I've never heard that.
And just lived with the locals until.
Yeah.
And then
that's a convict I can get behind. Wow. Yeah. You know,
that's William Buckley.
A part of our life together is also saying things and having the other person go, "That's how you say that." And you are the escapees is how I would say that word.
What did I say? Escapees?
Yeah.
All right.
And I don't know who's right or who's wrong, or it's never, it's not always about who's right and wrong. Sometimes we just say things differently because we have different accents.
On occasion, we're both wrong.
Yes, sometimes we're both wrong. Chupa Chups is one of those. We're both wrong.
Chupa Chups.
Chupa Chups.
What? It's a Chupa Chup.
Neither of us are saying it correctly. Both of us are wrong. Anyway.
All right. This one, Mary Wade. Mary Wade, convicted of theft.
Mary.
Transported to Australia on the Second Fleet. So she was
original. She was
really,
OG.
really OG. Yes.
Literally original gangster.
She was born in 1777, and she was convicted of theft in 1789. So she was 12.
Oh my god.
She was sentenced to death.
Whoa.
At the age of 12, she stole. She used to sweep the streets of London and beg for money. She stole some clothes, a cotton frock, linen tippet, a linen cap, sold them to a pawnbroker.
Do we know what a tippet is?
No.
Good, okay.
But it's made of linen.
Great.
And maybe it's pronounced tippet. It could be French.
Probably not in England. In England, it's a tippet. In France, it's a tippet.
Yeah, I stole this linen tippet, didn't I? You want to buy a linen tippet? Well, that's what she said. She said, "You want to buy a linen tippet? I got a linen tippet here." And then one of her friends said, "She stole a linen tippet and all," and dobbed her in. So another child snitch. Mary was arrested, put on trial, found guilty, sentenced to death by hanging.
Rough.
Now, this is the atmosphere at the time. So King George III was apparently cured of an unspecified madness in 1789, and to celebrate...
Probably syphilis.
To celebrate, all the women on death row had their sentences commuted to transportation. That's the kind of stuff that goes on in the 1700s. King George gets a bit mad. His doctor says, "You're all right now." And he goes, "Well, let's free some of the..." Well, not free.
Let's send the women to Australia to celebrate me.
Let's celebrate by sending some women to Australia.
Can we start celebrating when we're not ill anymore a little more often, please? Like once we've come out from a cold. We don't celebrate that, and I would like to now. I don't think we should release any convicts, but perhaps.
I don't think we have the power to do that.
No, however, I do know a taxi driver that has assisted in two escapees from the beach, the town of Beechworth. Anyway, maybe we can get... Anyway, the point is, let's all start celebrating when we're not sick.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So King George really set that trend.
Yeah. Started
that trend 300 years ago. So yes, she was one of them. She had been sentenced to death. Now, transportation. It was an 11th month, excuse me. It was an 11-month journey. 11 months in one of those little ships.
Oh my gosh, you could have a whole baby.
Well.
Oh no.
She shortly does.
On that trip?
No, but it was very common for female inmates to be pregnant, to become pregnant while in prison. To be pregnant on the journeys,
and then have a baby.
Sometimes
by the time
have babies. Yeah, they just arrive with
Absolutely
a baby.
Not.
Very, very common for that to happen. It was hard to be a female prisoner.
Yep.
You had to survive, and sometimes
that's what happened.
That meant attaching yourself to a man. In those days, yes.
Boo.
Thumbs down. So Norfolk Island was it's an island off the east coast of Australia. Which you couldn't escape from because it's an island. So there she had 3 children, starting in 1793, sorry. So she was a 16-year-old convict when she had her first kid, and then she had some more Then she got taken back to Sydney and had some kids with Teague Harrigan, who is a whaler.
Good old Teague.
So she had 3 kids with him, up to 5 now. Then he gets given some land in Tasmania and he just goes.
Just later days.
Never comes back. Later on, she lives with a man called Jonathan Brooker, who she will marry, and they'll apparently have 21 kids together.
21
So
children.
21 with him,
plus
5
other...
before, 26 kids.
No.
So she finishes her sentence. She becomes a free person. At the time of her death, at the age of 84, she apparently has over 300 living descendants. So she has these nearly 30 kids. They have kids. At this point, they think that her descendants in Australia are in the tens of thousands.
That would work.
And one of her descendants is apparently the former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd.
Oh, okay.
So she's considered one of the founding mothers of early European settlement in Australia, with her thousands and thousands of offspring. Oh my God. Brought to Australia at 12 when she was convicted, 13 when she arrived.
Wow, the things you have to do to
popping them out at 16.
Rough times.
Now, Alexander Pearce.
Any relation to Guy Pearce?
No,
Okay.
not that I know of. He was an Irish convict transporter for stealing 6 pairs of shoes.
Very specific.
Yes, 6 pairs of shoes. He was sent to Tasmania. He was one of the baddies that got sent to Tasmania. Van Diemen's Land. In 1822, he and 7 other convicts escaped into the wilderness. One of them had an axe to help them survive, presumably. Now, Pearce was strong and short, and he was not the guy with the axe.
That does not bode well for Pearce.
After 2 weeks in the wilderness, these men are struggling. They're starving. They don't have any food.
Oh no, I think I know where this is going.
So they draw lots to decide which one of them will be killed for food.
Oh, I would rather just surprise me.
Would you draw lots? Would you participate in that, you reckon?
No, I would form a coup and I'd be like, who's the weakest? And then I'd kill them in their sleep. Because no, you don't want to know. You don't want to know what's coming. You just want to become not be aware, I think.
Well, here's what they do. They do draw lots. One of them loses, and he gets bopped on the head. Yeah, I guess. Anyway, they kill him. Yeah. And some of the other guys are so scared by this whole situation. Some of them just run off. Yeah. They're like, nope. Yeah. Out of this, they go. There's 4 of them left. Okay. So they do eat the guy that they've killed. Yeah. But of the 4 that are left, there's the guy with the axe, and there's his bestie. And then there's 2 others.
You know.
So our guy, he knows he's 50-50.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be the 2 buddies.
So he should knock off the other guy as like a gift.
He makes a deal with the besties. Okay. He joins forces with them, and they gang up.
Original survivor.
They gang up with the others. So now there's 3.
Oh no.
There's 3. So that guy is done. They finish eating him. There's 3 left.
Yeah.
But one of them gets bitten by a snake.
Was it the bestie or the Axeman?
The bestie.
Okay.
The bestie gets bitten by a snake, so he's the obvious. He's going to die anyway.
Classic Australian.
They knock him off. Then there's
bitten by a snake.
There's 2 guys left. There's Alexander Pearce, our guy.
Yeah.
And there's the guy with the axe. There's Axeman. And you can imagine what it's like. You're sitting around a campfire. You're eating the other
last guy.
There's not much left. You're down to the last finger. Sitting around the campfire.
Nibbling on a bone.
Imagine the looks they're giving each other over that campfire.
Yeah. You wouldn't go to sleep. You wouldn't.
You would not go to sleep.
No, you wouldn't.
Oh my goodness. So inevitably, it comes down to these two having a fight. And Pearce wrestled the axe from Axeman, killed him, ate him. After he polished them all off, he ran out of friends to eat.
How long do you reckon one human lasted? I mean, definitely longer as one person.
Certainly, like at least a week, I reckon.
Well, and once you're just one of you, but they're probably not very robust either because they've been starving for a while.
Yeah, and they're also probably not preserving it very well.
No.
So yeah. Anyway, he runs out of people to eat. Starts stealing food from Aboriginal campsites. Then he got to a settled district. there was a sheep stealing ring.
A sheep stealing
Sheep stealing ring, a group of thieves. And he joins them, but then he gets arrested after 113 days. So I guess, what's that? Nearly 4 months?
Yeah.
Nearly 4 months on the run. Well, he was with the sheep stealers, so I guess he was on the lam.
Ha! I don't know mutton about that.
Something wool. Will you look at that?
Oh, there it is.
So they take him back, and he confesses to murdering and eating his companions. But the magistrate doesn't believe him.
Really?
They think that his buddies are still out there and he's just covering for him.
Wow.
So they don't believe him, and they just put him back in prison. Found his story hard to swallow.
No.
Right, so a year later, he escapes again, this time with just one other guy, a convict named Thomas Cox. Guess what happens to Thomas Cox?
I mean, surely he's killed and eaten.
Alexander Pierce kills and eats Thomas Cox. This time, they
There's
catch
a joke
him.
in there.
Something about
Cox.
something Cox.
Yeah.
So this time he's only out for 10 days. They catch him again. He confesses to killing Thomas Cox and eating him. But they believe him this time because he's got some of Thomas Cox in his pockets. He's got bits of
Cox.
Bits of Cox.
In his pockets.
Cox in his pockets.
Like that he was snacking on as he's going, or
Yeah,
with like some,
I guess he
or
kept...
like finger bones to make a necklace, or no, he just was like, this is going to be a nibble.
It's unclear from my research which parts, but he had some remains in his pockets.
Yeah. Wow.
So they believed him and they hanged him. And so that was Alexander Pierce. Now there's an Australian band called Weddings, Parties, Anything, which has a song about this story. It's called A Story You Won't Believe. Each verse starts with, there were 6 of us. And the next verse is, there were 5 of us. And there were 4 of us. And it goes on like that. And the chorus goes, and I said, right, there's another one. Don't you frown. Chew the meat and hold it down. It's a tale they won't believe when I get down to Hobart Town.
Oh my gosh, now we need to listen to this later.
Yeah. It's a fun little song. Kind of Bush got a song. So now that's all we're going to talk about with the convicts.
Okay.
We're
not talking about the funny hat?
That's
guy?
What's next.
Oh, okay. Funny hat guy.
That's what's next, because from the convicts leads on to bushrangers.
Ah.
So from the late 1700s to the early 1900s, Australia had bushrangers. The term was originally for escaped convicts who hid in the bush and survived through a life of crime.
Okay.
Bushrangers, they're called.
Yeah. See, I think of a ranger as somebody enforcing the law, like a park ranger or something. To me, a park ranger sounds like bush rangers, so I don't think of those as baddies.
It's the same thing, because ranging is just wandering around,
yeah.
isn't it?
But these are baddies. They're not protecting the parks.
They're not protecting the parks. No, okay. they're robbing the people that go into the park.
Right.
Or into the bush.
Different thing.
So that was, they'd go and live a life of crime in the bush. But these days, the bushranger has a kind of mythology. It's a sort of, a bushranger feels a cross between the American Wild West gunslingers and a kind of Robin Hood.
Oh,
That's what they feel like. So especially during the gold rush, mid-1800s, there were lots of famous bushrangers. Many of them were the children of convicts. They'd robbed banks and stores and coaches and inspired songs like The Wild Colonial Boy.
The Wild Colonial Boy, I have heard that song.
There was a wild colonial boy, Jadu was his name. Born on his parents, he was born in Castlemaine. Yeah, it goes on. Anyway, that's one of them. One was a well-known bushranger whose name was Frederick Ward, but he became known by this nickname that he gave himself.
Don't give yourself a nickname.
What would you call yourself if you were a bushranger? What would be your bushranger?
Oh my gosh, my bushranger name would be, I don't know, Princess, Queen
steals a lot.
Queen steals a lot. Queen steals a lot. Everybody put in the comments what your bushranger name would be, please.
I looked at, he was the son of a convict. He got sent to prison for stealing livestock, sent to Cockatoo Island. It's a very Australian story.
Yes,
sent to Cockatoo Island. But he escaped and became a bushranger, and he got killed by police because he was drunk in a tavern one day after he'd committed some crimes. The cops came to get him. He was wasted. and the police killed him. He called himself Captain Thunderbolt.
Captain Thunderbolt! Oh, I could be Lady Lightning.
Lady Lightning in Captain Thunderbolt. This sounds like a fantastic bushranger cartoon.
What would your bushranger name be?
Sir Kills a Lot.
Sir Kills a Lot. I want to be a Lady, what did I say? Lady Lightning.
Lady Lightning,
Lady
yes.
Lightning.
Captain Thunderbolt. And Captain Thunder, I thought it was such an awesome name until I read that he gave it to himself.
Yeah, you can't give it to yourself. Although I do feel like there's a good merch idea in there somewhere. We need Captain Thunderbolt shirts.
Yeah. So, of course, we're going to talk about Ned Kelly, who you called the little guy in the silly hat.
Yes, the little guy in the silly hat. Who apparently is Australia's favourite convict.
He's an amazing story, and most Australians will know his story, but I'm going to tell it for you and for anyone who's not Australian and is not familiar with the name Ned Kelly. He was the third of 8 kids. People had lots of kids back then.
Yeah, you needed them. They were liable to die.
Like that Lady Mary, whatever it was.
21, 25.
Who had tens of thousands of offspring.
Oh, yeah.
300 offspring while she was alive. Isn't that crazy? So, Irish parents. His dad died when he was 12. His dad was also a transported convict. So it's all related. So he was the eldest son. His dad died when he was 12, so he became the man of the house in rural Victoria.
Right.
As a family with a criminal past, they were often harassed by the local police.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ned was mentored by a bushranger.
Oh, you could get a bushranger mentor.
Yeah, he had a bushranger mentor. His mentor's name was Harry Power. A great nickname.
Harry Power.
So it's a bit like...
this is so camp.
Homer Simpson, who his alter ego was Max Power.
Yeah.
It's a great name. Oh, I got it off a hairdryer.
This is so camp. All of these names are like very high comedy.
Yeah, there's a lot of... Now, you think that's high comedy. Just wait. This name I'm about to tell you now. So,
okay.
The first time Ned gets arrested, it's for stealing 10 shillings from a Chinese hawker.
Okay.
Now, in the 90s, I used to do a little bit of theatre.
Yeah.
And the 90s was a different time.
It was a different time.
And we did Peter Pan, and I played a Chinese pirate.
Right.
And full Chinese costume, what we would now call full yellow face, I guess. It was the 90s, I was a child, but no adults stopped me.
In fact, the adults put you in that position, I would say.
Yes, and my name was Yoo-Hoo.
Yoo-Hoo.
Leading to lots of comedic Yoo-Hoo, hello, not you, all this sort of stuff. You know, a high comedy in the 90s. Now, but that's nothing, because this guy, so he's a Chinese hawker, and this is his actual name. So he...
Oh no!
I'm just showing Erica on here. What's this guy's name?
Fook.
Fook.
Fook. Fook.
Fook. Fook.
A-H space F-O-O-K.
Yes. Fook.
Also, what's a hawker?
He sells things.
Okay.
He's a salesman.
Right,
traveling salesman.
hawking things.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, he's got stuff, he's selling it. So his story is that he got bushranged. Ned Kelly beat him up and stole his 10 shillings.
Yeah.
But after he was arrested, Ned Kelly's family came and said, no, Fook came and caused the fight.
Yeah.
And we didn't steal anything. So the charges were dismissed because witnesses stood up for him. So he did a couple of stints in prison for robbery, and then he joined a group that would steal livestock. He grew into a tall, strong man. Apparently, did quite well at bare knuckle boxing matches as well.
Bare knuckle boxing. That's olden days.
So kind of low level crime, just surviving, kind of looking after the family, sort of stuff. But then, because they're involved in stealing livestock. Yeah. One day, the police come to the Kelly home to arrest Ned's brother Dan for horse theft.
Did Dan have a funny name?
No, Dan Kelly. None of the names in here are that funny anymore.
Okay.
I think we're past the funny name section.
We're past the camp section of the
past
Australian history
Captain
book.
Lightning and Fook and Harry Power.
Okay, we're getting serious now.
We're getting serious, yeah. So this is where there's two versions of a lot of these things. There's the version told by the police, and there's the version told by the Kelly family or their sympathisers. So the police version is that they went in there politely, said, we need to arrest Dan. And they were brutally attacked, that the Kelly family attacked them. Ned shot at them, and their mum, Alan Kelly, hit one of the police on the head with a shovel.
Alan Kelly was quite the matriarch, wasn't she?
Quite the matriarch, yeah. She was a tough woman.
It's giving, what's her name from Sons of Anarchy?
Oh, yeah, totally. So the family version is that Ned wasn't even there, that the police showed up drunk, said they're going to arrest Dan. They asked for a warrant. The family asked for a warrant, and the police drew guns and said, "We'll blow your heads off if you don't hand him over." So a lot of it is going to be, there's different versions. But I've got to say, just what everyone agrees is facts in the whole story of the Ned Kelly it's amazing.
And, I think both could be true at this stage.
It's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Probably somewhere in the middle. So after this incident, they're all wanted. Ned and his brother Dan escape into the bush with their livestock stealing buddies, who are Steve Hart and Joe Byrne. While they're hiding out in the bush, they pan for gold and they make whiskey to sell, earn money, and they've got lots of sympathizers who are on their side, who bring them supplies and help them out, give them information.
Last week we talked about panning gold at Sovereign Hill, so we are ready to go into the bush and survive by panning for gold, I think.
Yeah.
Except I got bored 5 minutes in, so probably not me. I would go hunting before I would pan for gold, I think.
They do also put the mum in prison.
Oh.
Yeah. So the police come looking for them because they're wanted for the attack at the house. And there's this infamous incident at Stringy Bark Creek. So this camp of policemen.
Stringy Bark Creek.
Yep. And after the stringy bark trees.
Say what you see.
A group of cops have come and they're camping out looking for what they're now calling the Kelly Gang.
Yeah.
And so this is, again, totally different versions. The Kellys, that we're just going to call them the Kelly Gang.
Yeah.
They claim self-defense. They say that they were attacked and they fired in self-defense. They kill 3 of the policemen. One of them gets away on a horse. His version is, of course, we're just sitting there having breakfast. They show up and start murdering.
Yeah.
So now they are highly wanted criminals for murdering police.
Yes.
There are large rewards offered for their capture, which means anyone can kill them without consequence.
Oh,
If you can just kill the Kelly Gang, and
you'll be a hero.
No, yeah. And if you help
and you get to rename yourself something cool.
Yes. Captain helps a lot.
Captain helps a lot to the rescue.
Captain snitch a lot. And anyway, if you were caught helping them, you could catch 15 years hard labour.
Oh no,
that was pretty harsh. So the Kelly Gang became bank robbers. They robbed a town. They robbed a bank in the town of Euroa. And part of that was they cut the telegraph wires so no one could call for help.
Oh yeah. And
they took a whole bunch of hostages, like 60 hostages or something.
Oh wow.
In a hotel, and they apparently treated everyone very nicely. They were courteous, polite.
Okay.
They didn't beat anyone up.
That's nice.
They put on a show.
They put on a show?
They put on a show.
I told you this was camp.
You're going to love this. A show of trick riding. So they had their horses and they would put handkerchiefs on the ground and they would gallop up and grab the handkerchief from the ground at full tilt.
Stop.
And do things like that, riding backwards.
Well, now I want to be part of the Kelly Gang.
Yeah, I thought you would when you heard this. Trick riding.
Trick riding, I'm in.
And they put on a show for the hostages. So they're doing more and more crime, and the police want them very badly. So more police are sent up to their area from Melbourne. The reward money gets bigger, up to £1,000, which now would be $130,000.
$130,000.
Dollary
dues, even.
Dollary dues. Well, they were poundery dues back then.
Poundery dues.
Poundery dues. At this stage, they're holding up hotels, banks. They're robbing police, sometimes stealing police uniforms. When they had hostages, Ned Kelly would give lectures.
Okay, now he sounds insufferable.
They take hostages while they're robbing things, and he would give TED Talks on police corruption and issues with the justice system. They would give out money.
All right, Ned Kelly.
They'd give out money to their supporters as well. So they were gaining a lot of support. So there's a lot of Robin Hoodiness about it. They were often described as courteous and polite to their civilian hostages, though they often, if someone was trying to run away, they would threaten to shoot them.
Yeah. Well, you've got to maintain order. And
you've got to maintain order.
If you need people to sit down for your TED Talk, threatening to shoot them is the best way.
Yeah. Listen to my TED Talk.
Yeah.
Or I will shoot you.
Or else.
Good way to keep an audience. He was also writing open letters to newspapers, telling his version of events and how it was all self-defense, accusing the police of corruption and lies. The banks didn't like them.
No.
Because they were getting robbed. Yeah. So some of the banks got together and collectively offered a £4,000 reward.
Oh, wow.
Which the Victorian government matched. So £8,000 reward now for the Kelly gang, which is about $1 million today.
On top of the 130,000 from earlier?
Well, that's just, it's all included. So now we're looking at, if you turn in the Kelly gang, you're getting $1 million.
That's a lot of money.
So one of their old mates called Aaron Sherritt, he becomes a police spy, gives the police information, lets the police use his house as a base of operations, but they find out.
Uh-oh.
The Kelly gang find out. So they go, knock on the door, Aaron answers, blast him in the chest with a shotgun.
Oh, off he goes.
There's some police there, they didn't kill him, they left him behind. But they figured after this brazen murder in front of police, Murder. After this murder, obviously more police are going to get sent to catch them. There's going to be a big campaign, go get the Kelly gang.
Yeah.
And they knew the train's going to pass through a town called Glenrowan.
Glenrowan, I drove through it, and there were lots of little hat men.
There would have been lots of little pictures of the silly little guy in a hat.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some people are wondering why we keep calling the guy in the silly hat. We're getting there. Yeah. We will get there. It's iconic. This is really iconic Australian history here. So they're knowing the train's going to pass through there. They plan to derail the train, kill any survivors. Let's just wipe out this police army that's coming. Wipe them out. Blow up the police barracks.
Why wouldn't you?
Release everyone in the local jail, and then just go back into the bush. So cause total havoc in this town.
It's giving Princess Bride.
Giving Princess Bride. So you're really leaning into it at this point. They're not trying to go straight.
No, this is it. I mean, when you've got $1 million on your head, go hard. It's time.
So they take over the Glenrowan railway station. They force some railway track workers to remove a section of the railway tracks, which is next to a sharp curve over a ravine. So if the train goes over there, it's
going down.
It's plunging. And they tell these railway workers, I'm going to do an Irish accent here. I'm going to try and do an Irish accent here.
Okay, I'm ready.
For atmosphere.
Okay.
We're going to send the train and its occupants to hell.
Ooh, I got chills. Ooh.
In the local hotel, they take the whole town hostage. They take the whole town hostage. They get everyone into the hotel, the Glenrowan Hotel. Some of them are sympathetic towards the gang, so not everyone's resisting. And they wait for the train to come. But in the evening, all the way they wait.
How many people are in a town at this stage?
62 people in this hotel that they've got as hostages.
That's the cutest thing I've ever heard.
So it gets late in the evening, the train hasn't come. So
how many speeches did he do?
I imagine he did a lot. But everyone's getting a bit restless, so they organise some music, some singing and dancing and games. They start handing out booze. So we've got the whole town in this hotel, getting drunk, singing along, doing sing-alongs, having a big party. It's a big hostage party in the Glenrowan Hotel. One of the guys is the local schoolmaster. His name's Thomas Curnow. He's going to be very important.
Okay.
He gains their trust. He's like, can I go? I don't like parties. And so they're letting him and his wife go.
Literally me. This is too much for me. I need some alone time.
So they're letting him and his wife go home. They're like, just be quiet about it. Just go home. Don't tell the others we let you go. So the whole evening goes. There's no train. 3 a.m. Ned Kelly's delivering a TED Talk. And
we should really call it a Ned Talk.
A Ned Talk, yes.
Stop clapping.
Sorry for clapping, ruining your audio there. A Ned Talk. The train hasn't come. It's 3 a.m. Can you imagine, though? They've had some music and dancing. Presumably everything's settled down.
And they're sobering up now.
They're sobering up, and now it's time for him to deliver a Ned Talk about police corruption. And he's thinking, oh, maybe we'll just let everyone go. This hasn't worked out. We'll let them all go when I finish my Ned Talk. But then someone goes, oh, the trains are coming.
Oh, no.
3 a.m. The trains are coming. Now, this is where the silly hat comes in. So in preparation for what they anticipated being a bunch of murder and a siege and a lot of shooting. The Cowley gang had taken some old iron plough moldboard panels. So iron panels, 6mm thick, which is pretty thick. Very heavy. And they had made them into suits of armour.
Wow.
Like medieval knights.
Yeah.
Not with the elegance of medieval knights, but just... in fact, I should show you a picture and maybe you could describe...
yeah, I can describe the armour from a picture, and for those of you watching,
this is a picture of Ned Kelly's actual armour.
Oh wow! Okay, so it almost looks like there's the top of the hat with, if it's a pot without a handle, and it's like hammered. There's a face shield, and it's all like hammered. They've really like reworked some of this armour. There's shoulder, not pads, but shoulder covers, and a big chest plate, and then like a groin plate also. But it looks very like it's hammered out of steel, and. How did he see out of this? Like the whole shield is like covering his face.
Yeah, you can see there's a tiny slit to see out of at the top there.
Oh, that's the side. I get it. Okay. So yeah, there's like the top hat part and a little line where you can see, and then a chin and chest shield almost.
Very medieval knight, isn't it?
Very medieval.
Yeah, chest plate, a little plate dangling.
Well, when you look at the real one, it looks less silly than the ones people put on mailboxes.
Yeah. Well, they've really treated it as an upside down bucket with eye holes cut in it.
Yeah.
Are those? But it's a little more
looks like it's got bullet holes in it.
Oh yeah, this is his actual suit of armor.
His actual one, so there's bullet holes.
So this is a picture of his actual suit, which is displayed. His actual suit, which is displayed, we can go look at it. It's in the State Library of Victoria in Melbourne.
Oh, we're going to look at that for sure.
Gonna
Field trip.
So all the gang, they'd made suits of armour, like medieval knights, so they could not get hit by bullets.
Yeah.
They were pretty heavy, like 44 kilograms.
Wow.
Each. So you're walking around. They were fit, strong men, but let's say strong 80-kilogram man, you're carrying more than half your body weight again. It just with this armor.
Yeah, because they wouldn't have been robust. They would have been lean. They're fighting and running.
They were lean men. Yeah,
they weren't.
Yes. So here we are. We've got 60 hostages. We've got 4 gang members with guns and suits of armor. Okay. We've got a broken track with a train load of police. About 40 of them on the train. Yeah. 40 armed police heading up there. And headed to this broken track, heading for disaster. Oh no! So remember, they let the schoolmaster go.
Yeah, he was sleepy.
He didn't like parties. No. Turned out he actually wasn't sleepy.
Uh-oh.
He went home and he got a lantern and a red scarf, and he ran out along the train track. Sabotage. So he's going out with his lantern and his big red scarf, and he's waving it, and he succeeds in flagging down the train.
Wow.
And so it's a bright moonlit night. The train stops with this army of policemen on it. Yeah. And he tells them the Kelly gang's up ahead in the hotel. So there's this, once again, it's 3, so we're probably 3:30 in the morning. 3:30 in the morning
now, yeah.
Bright moonlit night. The police take positions 30 meters from the hotel, start firing into the hotel. They bang, 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 until someone yells, "There's women and children inside."
Oh no.
So they stop firing then. All the gang are at least lightly wounded. Yeah. 2 of the hostages have been killed by police bullets. So there's brief ceasefire, and a lot of the hostages escape. Yeah. So more police show up, and they keep just through the night, just every now and again, just popping into the hotel. Ned Kelly's been wounded, and he's got outside. He's just lying in a bush.
Oh,
outside. Just lying there. He's been wounded. He's having a little lie down. Joe Byrne, one of the gang members, he gets shot dead by police. Joe. He's inside, but he gets shot dead while making a toast to the gang.
Oh my gosh, how dramatic.
So dramatic. So here's to the Kelly.
Wow, you really couldn't write that any better.
Feels a little Gavroche, doesn't it?
Does feel
little
like
people know
when little people are shot by the
when the
police.
Puff grows. Yeah. Anyway, so he gets shot dead making a toast. So all of this, all during the night, gets to dawn. Ned Kelly he decides, I'm going to make my stand now. So he's been wounded. He's got his 44 kilos of armor.
Probably took him all morning just to get up.
He gets up. He's got a big long coat on as well. It's a misty morning. There's fog rising from the ground as it gets to dawn.
I really am picturing the Princess Bride.
Oh, yes, this is so much, I am the dread pirate Roberts.
Yes.
Yes, this is so much that. So it's foggy and the police are there and this figure, we know now what Ned Kelly looks like.
Yeah.
They've never seen this before.
Oh, yeah.
This is 7 feet tall with this silly hat on, with this armor on, staggering, not moving like a person, moving because he's wounded. So he's staggering
wounded and he's under
them.
all of this armor.
It's it's got no apparent head because it's got this big square outline.
Yeah.
And so he's moving towards them, and they're shooting, and it's not dying.
Wow.
So these are all religious, God-fearing men in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And this giant figure's walking out of the mist.
Wow.
And whatever he's saying, it would have been echoing in his helmet.
Yeah.
And they're shooting and nothing's happening. And
how terrifying.
One of them screamed, "It's old Nick." They thought the devil was coming to get him. And he just walks towards it. But it's a struggle. He's wounded. He's been shot through the hand. Yeah. He's trying to reload his gun and shoot. And
he can't do it.
Can't do it. And he advances. His brother Dan, his mate Steve, they're firing from the hotel.
Oh yeah.
But eventually, one of the cops shoots. They like, well, shooting the head and the body is not working, so they start shooting his legs.
They got him.
And he goes down with nearly 30 wounds when he goes down.
Whoa.
But the armor took a lot of the shots. Took a lot of, as you saw, lots of dents in the armor. So they call a ceasefire. The rest of the hostages get sent out, leaving just Dan and Steve inside. The police fire a cannon into the hotel to try and flush them out.
Stop!
But they don't come out.
When did they get a cannon?
So they brought a cannon from somewhere. It's a local. They
just brought a cannon along.
The police don't have cannons anymore, do they?
No, they don't. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, society's gone to hell because the police don't have cannons anymore. So they don't come out from the cannon. So they set fire to the hotel, thinking that'll flush them out.
Might as well.
It doesn't. They stay in there and they die.
Yeah.
So their bodies are found later. But Ned Kelly gets put on trial for various murders and, of course, gets sentenced to hang by a judge called Sir Edmund Barry.
That would be a really tall Stocks.
Yeah, he's a tall guy.
They'd have to hang him extra high.
Yeah. I think they hung him pretty high. They're kind of hanging where you've got a platform and you're like you're on level 2.
They'd need an extra tall platform to make sure.
Hanging.
If they had a lot of women and children hanging from all the crimes, they would need a tall man platform.
Yeah, well,
sorry,
they had one.
Pretty grim.
They had one in Melbourne jail.
Oh, good.
So he gets put on trial. Sir Edmund Barry is the judge. He says to Ned Kelly, "May God have mercy on your soul." And Ned Kelly replies, "I will go a little further than that and say that I will see you there where I go."
Ah, there you go.
And the judge died 12 days later from natural causes, apparently.
Whoa.
So he gets cursed by Ned Kelly and
then he
dies.
Was Ned Kelly a warlock?
Was he a warlock?
Discuss in the comments.
He gets hanged at Melbourne Jail, 11th November 1880. His mother's last words to him are, "Mind you die like a Kelly." So she was proud of him.
Yeah.
And his last words have become iconic in Australian culture and symbolic of Ned Kelly as a badass and a folk hero. It's simply the words, and you might see these on the back of a car with stickers.
I see this as stickers and bumper stickers and.
Yeah. His last words, "Such is life."
Such is life.
I mean, multiple movies made about Ned Kelly, some good ones. Lots of books, lots of articles. He's larger than life character. That armor. Yeah. That image, and you've got to put this on your.
We'll put on Instagram. We'll put a bunch of the Ned Kelly lore that you kind of see around everywhere. People. Oh yeah, there's a good picture. I'll put that picture up. Yeah, but people have Ned Kelly mailboxes, and there's statues everywhere. But I didn't understand the first time driving through the Victorian countryside because they're always this big and they're made into a mailbox or they're made out of parts or something.
Yeah.
What is this weird hat guy?
The weird hat guy.
I don't understand.
Of the movies made about him, there was one where he's played by Heath Ledger.
Yes, that one is in our queue on, I think, might be Amazon. I think it's on Amazon. And I do keep meaning to watch it.
There's a Ned Kelly movie from the 70s starring Mick Jagger.
We watched a bit of this the other day.
Terrible.
And it is also high camp. And I really feel like we should all watch it.
Yes, we will have to go and see his armour at the State Library of Victoria. Absolute Australian icon. If you ask most Australians who's the most iconic Australian of all time, they'd probably say Steve Irwin, Ned Kelly.
Yeah.
That's got to be it.
No Olivia Newton-John?
Not compared to Silly Hat Man.
That's true. Fair.
So, in conclusion, Australia's relationship with crime and criminals is complicated. Literally, the first fleet to arrive brought a whole bunch of convicts.
Yeah.
And that was what built the nation as far as colonisation in white Australia. Built by convicts for a century. They just kept bringing, nearly a century. So through modern eyes, we definitely agree that transportation was basically almost always unjust. It was for crimes that wouldn't get you jail now. Minor theft. Most of the people sentenced to transportation would never see their home again or their family ever again, which is so out of proportion with the crimes committed.
Yeah.
Not only did they have to serve their sentence, if they were lucky enough to survive it, their lives have been completely uprooted and overshadowed with the endless shame of them having come to the colonies as a prisoner. You were different classes of people. You came as a free colonist, or
you came as a prisoner.
You came as a prisoner. And so looking back, we recognise that they were largely victims of a society and a cruel and overbearing criminal system, and that their survival and making it in that world was in itself an act of triumph.
Yeah.
So over generations and time, the convict shame has become a kind of pride, a special status. If you're connected to a convict, if you're connected to the transport of convicts by your family, and then the bushranger mythology, and especially Ned Kelly with his iconic silly hat, his silly hat did protect him from bullets.
Yeah, you know what? It's okay. I take it back. It's not a silly hat.
It would have been loud in there, wouldn't it?
It would have been so loud in there.
Imagine you're wearing an iron hat and it gets hit
by bullets.
Nah. Oh, it would have been loud. I think he was kind of deafened when they caught him there. So given criminals a certain hero status in Australian culture, not as shameful lawbreakers, but as victims turned rebels, evening the playing field. Very Robin Hoodish kind of feeling.
Very Robin Hoodish, and that's something that's really interesting about Australian culture, that what on the outside, I'm really happy you told me this story, because on the outside it seems like you're just kind of hero worshipping these convicts or these people that have killed the police, because you've got waterfalls named after criminals and Ned Kelly's everywhere, but it's much deeper than that, and absolutely they weren't convicts for a good reason, so it's really a really fascinating part of Australian culture to have a bit of hero worship for these Robin Hood types.
Yeah, so lots of murder, a bit of cannibalism, lots of hardship, murder. And that's the story of Australia's criminal convict past.
Wow. What a fantastic story. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us this story. I think everyone's going to love it.
Thank you for having me. I've been really enjoying listening to the show. I'm so excited that I got to be here. Hi, George. I know George is going to listen. Yeah,
George will listen for sure. And while you're here with us, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, give us a comment. Only give Rohan nice comments or he might never come back. And, and you can follow us everywhere at Macabre&Co on TikTok, Instagram. You can email us at macabre&company@gmail.com. If you want some extras, there is some fun extras from last week where we went to Sovereign Hill and panned for gold. So you can see those on Patreon at Macabre&Co. And even if you don't want to do anything else, please just subscribe. Just subscribe. Just hit that little subscribe button. It really helps us grow and be seen by other people. And until next time,
listen to lots of Ned talks.
And stay spooky.
Ned talks.
See you next week, friends.
Ned talks.